We good to go, Carrie? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Christopher Iannella Chamber. My name is Matt O'Malley. I am the City Council President pro tempore. Today is September 29th, 2021, and welcome to the City Council. Viewers can watch our council meeting live by going to YouTube or visiting boston.gov/city-council-tv. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum?
Thank you. Councilor Arroyo.
Present.
Councilor Baker.
Here.
Councilor Bach.
Present.
Councilor Braden. Councilor Campbell. Councilor Edwards. Councilor Asabi George. Councilor Flaherty.
Here.
Councilor Flynn.
Here.
Councilor Mejia. Councilor O'Malley.
Here.
And Councilor Wu. We do have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Councillor Lydia Edwards will now introduce our clergy. You can come up or you can do
It's
it.
me.
Who will, all right, well, on behalf of Councillor Edwards, I'm delighted to invite our remarkable clerk and a Council President Emerita, Maureen Feeney, to please offer the invocation. So, Madam Clerk.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. May we this day be reminded of the responsibilities we carry, not so much that we are intimidated or overwhelmed, but that we may be true to them, so that we may be faithful in carrying them forward. May we this day be inspired, be filled with new breath, be filled with new enthusiasm, be ready to see fresh opportunities, new perspectives, and unnoticed avenues for action and resolution. And may we this day remember those virtues that bless our lives and bless the lives of others. The virtues of caring and concern, the virtues of honesty and respect, the virtues of charity, industry, and patience. And may the members of the Boston City Council here present today maintain a high sense of their calling, remembering that they are invested here with honor and called to be a wider vision of the world, a world made more fair, more just, more equitable by their efforts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for those inspiring words. I would now invite you, if you are able, to please stand as Councillor Edwards leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have one presentation which I am honored to deliver, and so I'd like to invite Chris Lovett, as well as his wife, Natasha Fedorova, his longtime producer, Adam Boyagi, and Rich Rosenthal, his colleague, to please join me on the dais. A native of Dorchester, Massachusetts, Chris Lovett is a graduate of the Boston Latin School and Columbia University, where he earned a BA in comparative literature. He served as a reporter, editor, and photographer for the Dorchester Argus-Citizen from 1976 through 1987. He came to Boston Neighborhood Network News as a freelancer in 1984 and later became a full-time employee of BNN as their longtime news anchor. For the last 34 years, Chris has dedicated his life, his career, to excellent reporting in the city of Boston as the news director and anchor of Boston Neighborhood Network News. And he's also worked as a freelance reporter and photographer for the Dorchester Reporter and the Bay State Banner. When Johnny Carson retired, David Letterman said that it was like losing a public utility. And I can't think of any adjective better to describe Chris Lovett, someone who has interviewed all of us. And one of the things that I am so impressed and appreciative of Chris for is that he delves into the deep specificity of the news of what we do each and every day. And quite often, in fact, more often than not, he is the only reporter who is doing so. Not only does he cover us and cover the mayor and cover everything Boston, but I remember as a young 23-year-old candidate for office for the first time, going on his show, being nervous, but really appreciating that opportunity because of his incredible professionalism, his viewership, his reach. And like many of you, because I talked to many of you Friday, I saw this beautiful piece blowing up on social media where Chris had a very brief goodbye and acknowledging that he was leaving BNN. And I called Jessica, my chief of staff, and I said, we have to get him in on Wednesday. And luckily, he and his wife and colleagues were able to join us. But Chris, on behalf of this body, we are so appreciative of for each and every one of us, what you have done for excellence and fairness in journalism, in reporting the news, in covering topics that, again, would otherwise be ignored. You have been a remarkable Bostonian, a true leader, and just a consummate professional. So on behalf of the council, we have this resolution. Note it's signed by all of us, on behalf of all of us, really recognizing your 34 years of dedication to reporting in the city of Boston as the news director and anchor of Boston Neighborhood Network News, and it further declares today, September 29th, 2021, as Chris Lovett Day in the city of Boston, and we are so grateful. So, again, for me personally, for all of us, thank you, and we'd love it if you'd say a couple words, please.
Thank you. This is quite an honor coming from the council because I felt that we share a mission both in our show and what you do here in this body, because the job is to engage people, to create more transparency, and just to have exchange, because this council represents all kinds of people in Boston, and we need to talk to each other. So those are the things that are very important. I've been getting schooled on government by people in the council going back to when I was still in high school, and by Larry DeCara before he was old enough to vote. So I know that, but maybe the most impressionable thing, the strongest impression rather, was I was out in one of the neighborhoods one day, and I sat and almost eavesdropped on what it was like for a counselor to be working the phones to help somebody turn his life around. And that, to me, I think is the greatest thing that anybody in the council can do. And I think a lot of you do it. And sometimes you think it's something that nobody, pays attention to. Well, my job was to pay attention, and I was glad I had the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Well said. Now, colleagues, if you'd like to join, we haven't been doing it that often, but I think Chris certainly warrants it. We'll do a group photo with everyone, Chris and Natasha, Adam and Rich, if you want to join us up here. No, join us up here. You're the star of the photo. Then we'll get counselors.
Should we?
Yes, we're going to.
What's the mask protocol exactly?
I think we can, if you're comfortable, we could take it off for the photo, if everyone's comfortable with that. And I would, before we give this to you, I'd like every counselor maybe have an opportunity to sign as well. But maybe, well, let's take the photo and then we'll pass it around to sign with everybody.
Yes, good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If people are comfortable, they may, feel free to take their mask off for the photo.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to block anybody now. Good to see you again, Counselor. Thank you. Counselor, good to see you.
You're going to be missed.
Okay.
I know I made it. It's on BNN with Chris Lovett.
Okay.
All right, if every counselor wants to sign this, then we'll give it to Chris. And lovely to meet you. I've heard so much about you, and great. So, you know what? So everyone can say hello. We're going to take a quick recess. Council's going to take a quick recess so everyone can thank Chris and say
You
hello.
caught us all by surprise.
Counselor, good to see you.
Great to see you. I feel like if you told us all, we would have all been begging for our last interview.
Oh,
That's your official.
Oh, yes, it has, yeah.
That was the sign-off.
Called back to order. And Madam Clerk, would you please amend the attendance report to include the fact that Councilors Wu and Campbell have joined us? And that was special. Thank you, Chris and Natasha. Thanks for coming here. Now on to the first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes. Seeing and hearing no discussion on the matter, the chair moves to approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of the last meeting stand as approved. Moving right along to communications from Her Honor the Mayor. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 1010?
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket 1010, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to apply for and to accept and expend the federal fiscal year 2021 Continuum of Care grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount not to exceed $45 million. These funds will be used to support programs that provide services and housing to persons experiencing homelessness.
Thank you. Docket 1010 will be referred to the Committee on Housing and Community Development. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 1011?
Docket 1011, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,768,378.56 in the form of a grant for the FY22 State Elder Lunch Program awarded by the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs to be administered by the Age Strong Commission. The grant will fund nutrition services for up to 284,394 older adults in the City of Boston at $6.24 per meal.
Excuse me. Thank you. Docket 1011 will be referred to the Committee on Strong Women, Families, and Communities. Next up, docket 1012.
Docket 1012, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $1,500,000 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Securing the Cities, awarded by the United States Department of Homeland Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund Year 2 of the Securing the Cities grant project, which enhances the ability of the United States to detect and prevent terrorist attacks and other high-consequence events utilizing nuclear or radiological materials that pose a threat to Homeland Security in high-risk urban areas.
Docket 1012 will be referred to the Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. Docket 1013.
Docket 1013, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept an amount of $750,000 in the form of a Land Water Conservation Fund grant awarded by the National Park Services, passed through the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services, to be administered by the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. The grant will be used for improvements at Malcolm X Park that will make paths, entrances, and play areas compliant with the American with Disabilities Act.
Thank you. Docket 1013 will be referred to the Committee on Environment, Resiliency, and Parks. Docket 1014.
Docket 1014, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $500,000 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program, awarded by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, USDA, to be administered by the Office of Food Access. The grant will fund projects to increase the purchase of fresh fruits and vegetables by low-income SNAP consumers.
Docket 1014 will be referred to the Committee on Strong Women, Families, and Communities. And up next, docket 1015.
Docket 1015, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept equipment valued at $46,725 from the Thermo Environmental Instrument, LLC, for the purpose of detecting COVID-19 in the air.
Thank you. The Chair recognizes Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, Chair of the Committee on Public Health. Chair Arroyo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This grant order would allow the City of Boston to accept 5 units of aerosol sampler equipment, which would allow the city to detect the presence of COVID-19 aerosols in the air. The equipment will be part of a pilot program that's being run by the Boston Public Health Commission and will be used to test unoccupied office space after they've been deep cleaned due to confirmed COVID-19 cases in a workspace. The Health Commission is also committed to working with various city departments interested in testing the devices. This equipment specifically and this pilot program are an important way for the city to continue to minimize the spread of COVID-19, especially in City Hall for our city workers that have returned to work in person. And for that reason, I am asking we suspend the rules and pass this docket today.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ricardo Arroyo, Chair of the Committee on Public Health, seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1015. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is passed. And thank you to our representatives from Thermo Environmental Instruments for being here today, and thank you for your very generous donation to the city. Before we go to reports of public officers and others, just wanted to acknowledge two friends we haven't seen in a while. Great to see back in the chamber, of course, our friend Mike. It's always great to be with you, Mike. As well as our old pal Reggie Coleman, James Coleman. Great to see you, Reggie. Thanks for being here. Madam Clerk, would you now please read reports of public officers and others?
Thank you. Would you like me to read 1016 through 1022?
Yes, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Docket 1016, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Leslie Harris as a member of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, known as OPAT Commission. Docket number 1017, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of E. Peter Alvarez as a member of the Civilian Review Board of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. Docket 1018, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Danny Y. Rivera, Jr. as a member of the Civilian Review Board of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. Docket number 1019, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Joshua Dankoff as a member of the Civilian Review Board of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. Docket number 1020, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Dexter G. Miller as a member of the Civilian Review Board of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. Docket number 1021, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Leslie Harris as the chair of the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel. And docket number 1022, notices received from the acting mayor of the appointment of Stephanie Everett as the chair of the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, OPAT Commission.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Dockets 1016 through 1022 shall be replaced on file. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 1023?
Thank you. Docket 1023, communication was received from Susan L. Sullivan, Executive Director of the Newmarket Business Association, regarding the proposed petition for the Newmarket Business Improvement District.
Thank you. And docket 1023 will be referred to the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. Oh, I do apologize. Of course, before I remand that to the committee, I will acknowledge the district councillor from Dorchester. Apologies, I did not see your light, but Councillor Baker, the floor is yours.
I apologize. It's, you know, that season where the phone is constantly ringing. There's certain ones that we need to get. I know you understand. I apologize again. And we're on the bid here, correct?
We are,
Thank
sir.
you.
Docket 1023.
So 10 years ago, we went through the redistricting process. You were there with me. I ended up with a precinct that had one jail, 2 methadone clinics, and all the services for pretty much the entire city down at Mass and Cass. We're all familiar with it. And one of the things that I noticed was the need for services. We as the city will never be able to give the services down there that are needed. And this was 8 years ago. It's far worse now. The Business Improvement District is a program that I've been working on for at least 7 years. It's a program in which property and business owners elect to make contributions and add supplemental services to the area for maintenance, development, and promotion of their commercial district. There are currently bids in almost 1,000 towns and cities in the U.S. And we actually just did a bid a little while ago. I don't know if people remember, if they're familiar. For a number of years, the Newmarket has been negatively impacted by many issues that make it difficult to conduct business, live, or work in the district. The bid will be supplemental resources on top of what the City of Boston already has for funds and services in the area. Services like an augmented Newmarket shuttle services that will run 24 hours a day, so people can be able to get to their jobs without being harassed down there. Basically what's happening, we're using the BU and the South Bay BMC shuttles, they're all gonna come in under one shuttle system now. Comprehensive traffic plans, safety and security, clean streets. This is one of the best parts of it. One of the things that I saw when I went to San Francisco, excuse me, oh geez. Excuse me, Mr. President, I'm a little bit out of breath.
Quite all right, quite all right. Take your time, Councilor Baker.
One of the things that I thought they did right in San Francisco was they started to set up a series of bids all around the city, especially in the Tenderloin. Look at the Tenderloin, people that aren't familiar with it. They have ambassadors on the street. The bid downtown might point you to Paul Revere or another landmark, Fenway Park. These ambassadors will be there to help clean up needles. They'll be there to direct people to services, so almost be cross-trained in eyes and ears of our public health people, our business people, but be able to have resources available to them to direct people into services. I think that's one of the best parts of it. And the bid is also financed by annual fees collected from property owners based on their assessed values. I have to really thank Sue Sullivan and all the rest of the businesses down there, first of all, to agree to do this. We've been talking about it for so long, but Sue actually got the plan together and went around and got everybody's signature. You need a percentage of property owners to buy in to be able to agree to do this, and then it has to come through City Council because the city acts as the fiscal agent. Our assessing department assesses what the business will pay, and then we disperse the funds to the bid. They all work pretty much the same. In Manhattan, Times Square, that's a bid down there. You can model a bid in whatever way is going to help that area. And this area, like people know, is really different. And I think that we'll be able to we'll be able to help the situation down there. As I was coming in here today, Doris Wong from the Food Pack Express, 120 Southampton Street, was literally in a standoff with people at her loading dock. The police came, they cleaned it, they moved it to the side so her loading dock could accept a 50,000-pound trailer truck of flour. That's a big part of her business, 50,000 pounds. She couldn't accept the delivery, so there was a standoff down there today. Police involved, people that were on the street involved. Doris losing her mind, rightfully so, I think. So we'll have a hearing on this bid. I know I've had some feedback where people are horrified by the bid. They should go walk down in Atkinson and Topeka Street if they really want to be horrified. So thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry for the mix-up there.
Not at all. Thank you, Councilor Baker. Any further discussion on docket 1023? Seeing none, docket 1023 will be referred to the Committee on Planning, Development, and Transportation. Matters recently heard for possible action.
Docket number 0860. Councilor Arroyo offered the following order for hearing to discuss redistricting process in the City of Boston.
Chair recognizes Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, Chair of the Committee on Census and Redistricting. Councilor Arroyo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Tuesday, September 28th, the Committee on Census and Redistricting held a hearing to discuss the redistricting process in the City of Boston. I'd like to thank the U.S. Census Bureau and the Elections Department for taking the time to provide information and answer questions. As part of the hearing, we had the Assistant Chief of Redistricting in the Voting Rights Data Office from the U.S. Census Bureau come in and talk about the 2020 census, what kind of data was collected, and how that data can be accessed. Commissioner Anita Tavares was also present to discuss the re-precincting process that's currently underway. In addition to discussions on the census and re-precincting, the committee also presented an overview of what the redistricting process will look like over the next year. We're hoping to begin in earnest in January of 2022 once the re-precincting is locked in, and that will go all the way up to October. The deadline for this, having new maps, is a year before the next municipal election, so that's November of 2022. We're hoping that we'll be able to do a robust, simultaneous sort of community information and hearing process where we're doing virtual ones, and if health and safety protocols allow, we're also doing some in person. I'd also like to thank my council colleagues who were present and active in the conversation. Councilors Flynn, Councilor Braden, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Baker, Councilor Bach, and Councilor Edwards. And I'm looking forward to a continued engagement on our redistricting process and timeline. I'm asking that this, or I'm recommending rather, that this docket remain in committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Docket 0860 shall remain in the Committee on Census and Redistricting. Moving right along to motions, orders, and resolutions. Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 1024?
Thank you. Docket 1024, Councilors Braden and Edwards offer the following order for hearing to review rental unit conditions, standards, and inspections in the City of Boston.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the district councillor from Brighton. Councillor Liz Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to suspend Rule 12 and add Councillor Bach as a third original co-sponsor of docket 0124, please.
Councillor Braden seeks suspension of Rule 12 and the adoption of Councillor Bach as the original co-sponsor. Seeing no objection, Councillor Bach is hereby added. Please proceed, Councillor Braden.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues, Councillor Edwards and Bach, for their partnership on this issue. This hearing order is to invite the Inspection Services Department to review and the enforcement to municipal codes covering inspection and re-inspection of rental units and rental dwelling unit standards. We have just concluded the annual rituals around, in September, the rental lease renewal turnover cycle and colloquially called Alston Christmas. And I've heard from a significant number of Alston Brighton tenants about rental unit conditions and questionable compliance with city regulations. We must review the city's current property registration and inspection practices. And my concern is not so much with the inspection and registration of exempted property owner-occupied units, but particularly with larger corporate and absentee landlords who have become chronic offenders, allowing violations to pile up and having the means to pay off fine after fine without actually improving living conditions in their units. Under current rental unit registration practices, larger multi-property owners are not required to disclose information of all individuals and entities with business ownership interests. The public does not have any meaningful way or convenient access to rental unit registry information, making it difficult to hold chronic offenders accountable. This conversation will be an opportunity to check in with ISD on the tools and resources that they need to implement better solutions to effectively rein in bad actors and to take advantage of the current, and they take advantage of the current system in order to improve living conditions, and we really need to use the system to improve living conditions for renters across our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the first original co-sponsor, Councillor Lydia Edwards. Councillor Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think this has been one of the most consistent conversations I've had since I've joined this body, and that is we're working with ISD to figure out that the laws that we have on the books are actually getting enforced. And I remember in many of the budget hearings, we often ask, do you have the resources? Councillor Flynn asked, do you have the resources? Councillor Flaherty asked, do you have the resources to enforce the new laws? And I think this is just a check-in about that, especially as we're in the middle of transition and we're dealing with more and increased rental units, but we also are wondering if they're really complying with the law. I think we, recently just had a wonderful conversation or introduced a hearing order for making sure that property owners are being held accountable. We want to make sure that their renters are actually being seen and being that we even know where they exist. I think at the end of the day, one of the best things we can do is have a robust list of all the rental units, know the conditions of them in the City of Boston, so that when we go to push new policy, we're able to, in one email or in one mass mailing, genuinely get to all the tenants and landlords at one time. And having worked at the Office of Housing Stability, oftentimes that was the way in which we used this list. It wasn't just to assess fines, it was honestly to communicate. There's a pandemic, there's a new law about how you need to file your notice to quit. All of these different things are more efficient if we have a robust list that is up to date. And honestly, I think the ability for ISD or any of the city department to check in and get to all of the apartments in the city has also been a growing, not so much concern, but something we still continue to work on. We're still trying to actually get through the first level, I think, of inspecting all of the units in the City of Boston. So we're excited to just not criticize, not throw under the bus, but really figure out honestly how are we going to do this together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The chair now recognizes the third original co-sponsor, the district council from Beacon Hill, Councillor Bach. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Councillor O'Malley. And I'm really proud and pleased to be joining Councillor Braden and Edwards on this. I think thinking about last week's filing and this week's filing, it's sort of taking that two-track effort of, on the one hand, I think we would get more problematic property owners' attention if we enacted what we talked about last week, which is an increase in municipal fines. But in the meantime, we've got, we want to pursue that, but we also want to use the tools that we have to hand now. And I think that, I came from a problem properties task force meeting this morning in Mission Hill. And I just think that again and again, we run into the issue of, okay, in theory, there's this thing on the books, but has ISD followed up? Where are we? And I think a lot of the housing inspection materials specifically are still kept on paper in a way that can make it really hard to have that bird's eye view that helps us get at the bad actors. And I think we just have to all recognize that it's, there's been a lot of conversation about how tenants get squeezed by rent rates, and that's very true and real and a real pressure, but also like tenants get squeezed when there's lots of hidden fees. They're having to spend a ton of their time to harass their landlord to get a basic thing that's supposed to come as part of their apartment. They're living with the stress, like, the bad health conditions of a substandard unit. So there's a lot of ways that the power imbalance of a landlord-tenant relationship can affect the lives of the majority of Bostonians who do rent besides just rent. And I think that it gives our responsible, good landlords in the city, it frustrates them to no end, I know as well. I'm on the Problem Properties Task Force call with a number of them in Mission Hill, and I think that, everybody in the community loses when we've got landlords who feel like they can just ignore these complaints and these real quality of life issues for Bostonians and not have it go anywhere. So really looking forward to this hearing and hoping that we can figure out how together we use our existing regulations to escalate things more effectively and solve more of these problems. So just again, want to thank Councillors Edwards and Braden for their partnership on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bach. The chair now recognizes the district council from South Boston, Councillor Flynn. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and please add my name. I just want to say thank you to the makers for sponsoring this important hearing. I think Councillor Edwards said it best, is we also need to make sure we have the inspectors that will actually go out and do the work and inspect the properties, including Airbnbs. These are a lot of quality of life issues, but I think it's upon us as a city council during the budget process. We shouldn't accept anymore from department heads that they have the necessary funding in their budget. We have to push back a little bit on that. No city department wants to come down here and say they have all the necessary funds to do their job, because that's not accurate. We need to be more aggressive as a body, myself included, in pushing back and saying, no, you don't have enough money to do inspections and that you need more money. And to do this job right, we have to make sure the money is in the budget so these inspectors, ISD inspectors, can go around and do their job, whether it's checking on tenants or doing Airbnb-related issues. But at the budget process, it's critical that we fund these programs and services. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Would Madam Clerk please add Councillor Ed Flynn as a co-sponsor? Any further discussion on docket 1024? Would any councillors wish to add their name? Madam Clerk, please add Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Baker, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Saiby George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Mejia. Please add the chair's name, and Councillor Wu. And docket 1024 will be referred to the Committee on Housing and Community Development. I'd now like to invite Councillor Campbell to please take over the dais. And as she comes up, Madam Clerk, would you please read docket 1025?
Docket 1025, Councillor O'Malley offered the following resolution in recognition of the achievements of former Mayor Thomas M. Menino in the city of Boston.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor O'Malley, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. While I have great memories of Councillor Flynn's dad, Mayor Flynn, as mayor, the first mayor I really remember following, and I know many of you agree, was Mayor Tom Menino. He was elected when I was 12 or 13. I just turned 13, and it's really when my sort of burgeoning interest in politics and government began. I began interning for a former colleague of Clerk Feeney's, who was often at odds with Mayor Menino, to put it mildly. And I remember seeing him in the elevator once, and he knew me, and he said, "I know you. You're the wise guy." And I was so excited. No cell phones in those days. I called my dad, and I said, "The mayor knows who I am," and he called me a wise guy. And then 15 years after that, 11 years ago next month, he came in to swear me in as a member of this body. And, you know, it was a story, but we didn't expect him to come in. Alex, I don't know if you remember this, but Rosaria Salerno was the clerk. She was out with health issues, so Alex was slated to swear me in, and I love Alex. He's my second favorite Greek, well, I guess my third favorite Greek now. But I was kind of bummed Mayor Menino couldn't make it because he had some health issues at the time, but I remember vividly being in here. Maureen was a counselor at the time, and Angela Menino came in first, and then in came TMM. And to get to work with him as a counselor for 3 years before he retired was a true honor. I learned so much from that man, and I know so many of you have so many fond memories, and perhaps some not so fond memories as well. But he was just a remarkable leader for this city. He did so much for so long. He really helped transform Boston. You look at sort of how, before the pandemic, how Boston was so strong fiscally, and just that really was because of his leadership, and for so many other reasons. As my time on this body wraps up, I really wanted to acknowledge and recognize his great work. And also the work of Alice Hennessy. All of us know that we are only as good as the people with whom we work, meaning our staffs. And Alice was a central staff director here. She came from this amazing family in West Roxbury. She was so committed. She founded West Roxbury Friends of Rosie's Place. She was transformative on libraries. Her husband, Bill, who actually was in here, we acknowledged him before he passed away, and Alice several years ago, had done so much. Alice was central staff director. Mayor Menino, as council president, becomes acting mayor, taps Alice, and she was the general. She would do these things. She was the sweetest. She had the countenance of just, it's very nice. And she was very nice, but she was tough in a good way. And Mayor Menino and Alice literally transformed a landfill in my district. A landfill. I remember it as a literal dump growing up into a absolutely remarkable public park, Millennium Park in West Roxbury. It's 100 acres. There's a canoe launch. There's a number of football fields. It's just an amazing, amazing place. Capped a landfill. This was a feat of modern engineering that other cities have now done, but it happened because of Mayor Menino and Alice Hennessy. So I want to acknowledge that work. It's named Millennium Park because it was opened in December of the year 2000. And I think it's high time that we rename it Mayor Thomas M. Menino Park, and that we acknowledge the new playground that I was very lucky to work with Mayor Walsh to get funding for, and is now being refurbished, the Alice Hennessy Playground, to acknowledge those two public servants who have done so much for our city. And just a simple way is something that I'm proud and truly honored to advance before us today. So I don't know how familiar everyone is in the renaming process. It's quite an ordeal, and what we're doing now is just the first step. So I'm going to ask for suspension of the rules and passage of this resolution, naming Millennium Park Thomas Menino Park, Mayor Thomas M. Menino Park, and naming the playground Alice Hennessy Playground. And I will say that we've got great support from Senator Rush, Representative Coppinger, Lord Mayor Richard Gormley, who we know is the most politically important person in West Roxbury to get on board, and just so many great neighborhood folks. And then we will go through the process working with the Parks Commission. There'll be a community meeting, and we will hope to have a hearing. But I really think that this is important to acknowledge the good work of a guy who was such a profoundly important leader in our city. And also, equally important, Alice Hennessy, the incredible long-time serving aide to Mayor Menino and just an incredible leader in her own right. So I thank you for letting me go a little bit off script and off topic a little bit, but I will ask all of you to please indulge me and suspend the rules and pass this today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you're going to make me take a vote on the guy that put me out of work. But I sign on to it, and that's just a joke. He actually did me probably the biggest favor of my life, because I'm here now because he put me out of work. But agree with your words. We're in the fiscal health we are now because a lot of the decisions that Tom Menino made and Mayor Ray Flynn made also before him continued through the last administration and hopefully into the next administration, that the finance is the most important thing. We can't do programming and take care of things that we have unless we have the finances. So I'd like to sign on, and absolutely good job, Matt. It was transformative over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? Madam Clerk, if you could add Councillor Baker. Anyone else want to add their name? Councillor Arroyo, Councillor Bach, Councillor Braden, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Sabi George, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Flynn, Councillor Mejia, Councillor Wu, as well as the chair. The sponsor is seeking suspension of the rules and passage of whatever docket this is. Suspension or adoption? 1025. All those in favor of passage say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it. If you could call the roll, Madam Clerk, thank you.
With pleasure. Docket 1025, Councilor Arroyo. Yes. Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker. Aye. Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Bach. Aye. Councilor Bach, aye. Councilor Braden. Aye. Councilor Braden, aye. Councilor Campbell. Yes. Councilor Campbell, yes. Councilor Edwards. Yes. Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Sabi George. Yes. Councilor Sabi George, yes. Councilor Flaherty. Yes. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn. Yes. Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor O'Malley.
Yes.
Councilor O'Malley, yes. And Councilor Wu. Yes. Councilor Wu, yes. Mr. President, docket number 1025 has been adopted unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, would you now please read docket 1026?
Certainly. Docket 1026, Councilor Edwards offered the following resolution in support of amending the Downtown Municipal Harbor Plan.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes the District Council from East Boston, Councilor Lydia Edwards. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Much of our conversations today are about the planning in our waterfront and making sure that they're equitable. We have a municipal harbor plan, and I've gone on record actually saying it should be removed and scrapped and done over again. I know our attempts to do so have been thwarted as a city, so I come back actually to my colleagues on the body and say, if removing it completely is not an option, then certainly we should be moving to amend it. Amend it to make sure that it's reflecting of where we are as a city when we're dealing with racial awareness and equity. Amend it because we need to be talking about environmental justice. Amend it because climate change was not part of the original plan. And so when we go to sit down and deal with this plan as it is, I hope that you would support an amendment that does all of those things. The fact is that this municipal harbor plan wasn't looking at those things. It was trying to help enliven the harbor and make sure that there was development available. Well, we've already changed our zoning. We've amended our zoning to actually include racial inclusion, to do deeper analysis, to make sure it's a true place, whatever gets built in any of our neighborhoods, that is inclusive for all of us. So I'm asking at the municipal harbor plan that we go on record as a body saying we support that same vision, that same commitment to an equitable, just, environmentally just harbor plan that everybody in the city of Boston, if not in the greater Boston area, feels that they can be a part of and be welcome to. And I think that that's part of our planning, and I would like the amendment to reflect that as well. So I hope my colleagues will go on record in support of an amendment that does that, and I'm asking to suspend the rules and vote on the resolution today.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Any further discussion on docket 1026? Seeing none, would any councilors wish to add their name? Madam Clerk, please add Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Braden, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Sabi George, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Mejia, please add the chair, Councilor Wu as well, and please add Councilor Baker. Madam Clerk, would you please, excuse me, not Madam Clerk, Councilor Edwards seeks suspension of the rules and adoption of docket 1026. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is hereby adopted. Congratulations, Councilor Edwards. Moving right along to personnel orders. Madam Clerk, would you please begin with docket 1027?
Certainly. Docket 1027, Councilor O'Malley for Councilor Flaherty.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1027. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is passed.
Docket 1028, Councilor O'Malley for Councilor Ball.
Chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1028. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is passed. Docket 1029, please.
Docket 1029, Councilor O'Malley offered the following
Chair seeks
order.
suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1029. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is passed. I'm now informed by the clerk that there are no late filed matters. Well done, everybody. Anybody wishing to remove a matter of the green sheet may do so at this time. The chair recognizes the district councilor from East Boston, Councilor Edwards. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to pull docket 0998 from page 12 of 22.
All right. As colleagues look through their green sheet packets on docket 0998, shall we poll the committee? Is that the first step, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay, so the clerk will poll the committee on housing and community development.
Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Bach.
This is docket 0998, and it's
998.
page 12 of 22, I believe.
Yeah. Good. Councilor Baker. Aye. Councilor Baker, aye. Councilor Braden. Aye. Councilor Braden, aye. And Councilor Flynn. Yes. Councilor Flynn, yes. Unanimous support from the committee. Would you like me now to read it into the record?
Yes, please.
Thank you. On page 12 of 22 of the green sheets in the Committee on Housing and Community Development, docket number 0998, sponsored by the mayor, a message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend an amount of $345,678 in the form of a grant for the FY22 Fair Housing Assistance Program awarded by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to be administered by the Department of Fair Housing and Equity. The grant will fund proceedings and processing and training costs related to housing discrimination complaints received by the Boston Fair Housing and Equity Commission. It was referred to committee on September 22nd, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And normally we would have had a hearing about the funding, but this is actually a re-grant of a fiscal year grant that they gave to us in 2020. And this was a reimbursement for the work to help fight against housing discrimination, whether it's the study or it's the having people go out as mock buyers or mock renters. And so the office is getting reimbursed by HUD. This is similar to the same amount of money we got in 2020. So I didn't want to delay any reimbursements. For those who are interested, the breakdown of the money really goes to $230,000 of the grants are reimbursements, $400 are just for post costs, $65,000 are for funds intended to supplement administrative costs, and $48,000 in training funds meant to go to BFHC staff for fair housing and job-related training. So that's the breakdown. It's been done before. Last year, we approved it. We had a hearing on it last year. I didn't know we needed to have a repeat conversation. So I'd like to remove and get them the funding back to them, or to them as soon as possible.
Great. Any further discussion on this first, on docket 0998? Seeing none, the motion of the committee chair is to accept this docket that's properly before the body. All those in favor on docket 0998, which is a $345,000 grant for the Fair Housing Assistance Program, a re-grant, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The docket is hereby passed. We are now moving on to the consent agenda, and I've been informed by the clerk that there are no additions to the consent agenda. The chair moves for the adoption of the consent agenda as presented. All of those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda has hereby been adopted. Would any councilors wish to make any announcements before we adjourn? The chair recognizes the district council from East Boston. Councilor Edwards, the floor is yours.
I just wanted to note there are some unsung heroes in a lot of this process that we've been going through as a city, and I wanted to name them specifically from my neighborhood, the people who are helping with the after-school programs, who helped during the pandemic. Those are the heads of the BCYF centers. I wanted to just specifically thank Mimi Wren from Charlestown, Nicole De Silva from East Boston, the amount of work that they've done and the generations of kids that they've actually helped to raise. I was one of those kids at after-school programs, and I just wanted to call them out because I know that they're under a lot of pressure and added the buses also add to their ability to deal with and help those kids coming after school. If the buses are late, to get them even there to those centers. It's a whole train wreck, if you will. And I also wanted to specifically call out Lori Delia from the North End, 20 years actually, been working in the North End and dedicated service to our young people there. She has, I think, been overlooked and not truly appreciated for the amount of generations that she's helped in the North End and young people from throughout the whole entire city. So I just wanted to call them out, and BCYF, I think every single one of us can honestly say BCYF workers specifically are unsung heroes, and oftentimes because they're not teachers and they're not in the schools, we forget that they're not part of the massive education system to help raise the future generation of Boston. So I wanted to call them out.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Edwards. The chair now recognizes the at-large councillor from South Boston, Councillor Flaherty. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rise on behalf of our entire body here to recognize Tom Donahue, recognize his most recent passing, but the great work that he's done. Came to a shock when I learned this weekend over in West Roxbury in the Cora Road race that Tom Donahue had recently passed away. Lifelong resident of the city. He loved Rosendale, lived there for 63 years. He went to Latin, he went to Boston State, he got his master's at Suffolk University, so he was Boston through and through. And he took a lot of pride, obviously, in his hometown of Rosendale, and also his role as the president of the Rosendale Parade Committee. And for those that do not represent Rosendale, you would know him because he would be in your neighborhood, sort of scouting out the parades and finding out who had what bands and what elected officials were marching in which parades. And then shortly thereafter, after that parade, you'd get a letter from Tom Donahue inviting you to the Rosendale Parade. So he was the guy you'd see on the sidelines walking along the parade route, as we know, as a citywide councilor in all of the parades. You'd always see Tom, at those parades, again, just getting the scouting report to try to make his parade, the Rosendale Parade, the best parade in the city. So that said, a huge loss for Rosendale, a huge loss, obviously, for those that put their heart and soul into putting off the parade. In fitting tribute, obviously, today that because Rosendale Parade is this weekend, and so I think a lot of folks will have heavy hearts along the parade route, and there'll be that sort of, during my tenure on the council, he's been the ever-present sort of Rosendale Parade guy, telling you exactly where you need to be, what street you need to line up in. God forbid you were out of line or in a different order, you'd get to meet Tom Donahue pretty quickly. But so for those that spent a lot of time with Tom organizing the parade, and also for the great people of Rosendale, thoughts and prayers are with you. Obviously with Tom's family, again, big loss for the Rosendale community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Flaherty. And as someone who spent a number of years on the parade committee, I can attest to his great work. And I would just note that the parade has actually been renamed. It is the Thomas Donahue Rosendale Day Parade this Sunday, which is a great tribute to a remarkable man. Any further announcements? The chair has two. First, I wanted to congratulate and acknowledge Shane Pack, our senior legislative assistant and budget analyst, who was sworn into the United States Naval Reserves this past Monday. He's not in the room, but he's going to be a fellow Navy man like Councillor Flynn, so thank you in advance, Shane. It's the Naval Reserve, so he's staying here. He's not leaving, but he's going to be doing some reserve duty. And then secondly, as I've told many of you, Councillors Arroyo, Mejia, and I are delighted to mark Hispanic Heritage Month. We are following the lead of Council President Emerita Campbell, who did a wonderful event a number of years ago where we all acknowledge two of our community leaders. And we're going to be doing that virtually this year, obviously, out of safety's sake. But please work with Jessica and Anna from my team and get us those names as soon as you can. I look forward to a great, on behalf of Councillor Mejia and Councillor Arroyo, a great virtual event to really mark and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in the next couple of weeks. Seeing that, we are going to adjourn now our meeting in memory of the following individuals. For Councillors Baker and Asaibi George, Dorothy C. Morrison. For Councillor Bach, Charles Mills. And for Councillor Asaibi George and the chair, Ann Milliken Brown. If you would all please stand up. We will adjourn in memory again of Dorothy C. Morrison, Charles Mills, and Ann Milliken Brown. A moment of silence, please. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of the aforementioned individuals. We are scheduled to meet again in the Ionella Chamber next Wednesday, October 6th at 12 noon. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The City Council is hereby adjourned.
My name and number, and what you can do that day when you call, I'll be already in Raleigh.